What's up, I'm Troubleshoot, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be optimizing Escape from Tarkov for the best possible FPS. Now of course there's a brand new update bringing in a long-awaited map, so there'll be tons of old players returning to the battlefield. This video is not going to touch on Windows really at all. In the description down below you'll find the Windows 10, 11 and NVIDIA optimization guides, as well as anything else related to get even more performance out of your PC. This is specifically and only going to focus on Escape from Tarkov. So with that out of the way, make sure you have everything closed that you can have closed, unnecessary overlays turned off, and open up the game launcher so we can hop into game. Head across to settings in the bottom right, then under game, make sure you have automatic RAM cleaner turned on and only use physical cores as well. These two should result in much better performance in-game across the board. FOV, of course, is your preference. Same goes for head bobbing, though I usually have this one far down. Just makes the game a bit easier to see while you're running around. On the graphics tab, make sure that your screen resolution matches or is at least compatible with your display. Screen mode should be set to full screen with this update. Aspect ratio matches your monitor, and of course, monitor is the correct monitor. Then, save changes, head back in, and now we get to the juicy bits. Obviously, you can use the slider as you see fit, but we'll be customizing things individually. Texture quality should absolutely be high if you have anywhere more than 6 gigs of VRAM in your graphics card. Otherwise, 4 gigs set it on medium and low for lower-end PCs. Shadow quality should be set to low, LOD quality at around 2 to 2.5 you'll have the best, and visibility should be around 1000 to 1500 based on your PC. If it's not so good, you may have to lower these of course, but usually 2.5 and 1500 is good for these two options. Anti-aliasing should definitely be turned off unless you hate jagged edges, in which case you can enable it, though do note that some of these do add some really bad blur. Scrolling down, resampling should be set to 1x off. DLSS should be set to off unless you really need more FPS. It's useful to have to get an FPS boost. However, all of these here, AMD FSR, FSR 2.1, and NVIDIA DLSS will all introduce their own artifacts at higher settings, meaning that you may not notice people in the distance as much as you would normally because they get blurred into the environment and things like that by the upscaling AI. If you really want to, you can use these, but make sure you have them on the higher quality options rather than the more performance-giving options, as you'll definitely need clarity over raw performance in this game. HBAO off, SSR off, anisotropic filtering doesn't have a huge impact, but once again, I have it off. And NVIDIA Reflex low latency. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you should turn it on for a latency improvement, and on plus boost if you're CPU limited in the game, which is not always the case. Usually only super low-end CPUs and high-end GPUs will need on plus boost. Sharpness is your preference. I usually keep it at the default of 0.6, and from here, the rest of these options may be blurred out for you. Lobby FPS limit is your choice. The game FPS limit will be set to whatever your monitor is if you have NVIDIA Reflex turned on, but if you turn it off, make sure it's as high as possible, 120 or 144. Usually you'll only want to limit FPS if you're trying to, say, record and the game's eating your entire GPU, leaving absolutely nothing for OBS, for example, and your recordings end up all stuttery, in which case drop it just below your FPS. If you're getting 95, set it to maybe 90 or 80 FPS in the game, leaving you some space to stream and or record if you're running into that hardware limiting issue. Otherwise, max it out, or of course, NVIDIA Reflex low latency, you won't even have that option at all. Finally, the rest of the options down here, MIP streaming will usually be turned off unless you manually enable it, though the results from this will completely depend on your PC, usually leaving it off is good enough. The rest of these you can usually leave off, especially chromatic aberration, grass, shadows, noise, and Z-blur. These will all make the game more difficult to see, while you may need that extra ability to focus in-game. They're just to make the game a bit prettier, but of course, don't come at any competitive advantage. In fact, having them turned on is a disadvantage. High quality color is just your preference. I would think if you're playing in HDR or have an HDR monitor, you'll probably want to have this on, but otherwise leave it off. And of course, MIP streaming, if you have this on, you can play around with these settings, but I'll be leaving it off just for easier, better performance. Other than that, we have the sound options here. It's a good idea to enable voice over IP. and choose your correct microphone here. That way you can shout at people in game when they shout at you, for example. On the controls tab, you'll see enable/disable VoIP. This is a good idea to set. That way you can smack that button, and whenever people are getting too noisy, hit it and everything will go quiet. Push to talk, default of K, you'll be able to shout at people in game. Anyways, with that, finally the PostFX tab. Obviously you'll have this off unless you like buggering around with different options here. Extra brightness, saturation, clarity, colorless, luma sharpening, adaptive sharpening, etc. This is all your preference really. It shouldn't gain you any FPS, though then again it shouldn't cost you too many at all if you choose to play around with these options. It's sometimes nice to have better color grading. I'm pretty sure Jason's what I had it on before. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that's just the default, but anyways, these are all for you to play around with if you choose. Obviously, colorblind mode is something you would set if you were colorblind. Otherwise, just leave it off and save. Beyond this point, you're ready to hop into a game, as you would usually, say Streets of Tarkov, and enjoy the new environment. And there we go, we're in game. Obviously, once again, if you hate jagged edges like these here, you're probably seeing tons of weird lines and moving lights. If you find it too distracting, you can turn on anti-aliasing. It gets rid of the flashiness of jagged edges. If I turn off anti-aliasing and instead use DLSS quality, for example, plus it does make the game look a lot softer in general. Having it on quality isn't so bad, but of course it may not be something that you want. If you find that you're getting screen tearing while running around, on the main menu, you can head across to graphics and enable VSync. That'll fix the issue. However, you'll see that you get a large amount of added input latency. Of course, for some people, that may just be necessary. Anyways, that's about it for this quick guide. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao!